Well, good afternoon. I am Mauricio Vera. I'm the Assistant National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement, and I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is about CVE certification and the transition to the Small Business Administration. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Veteran Institute for Procurement in partnership with the SBA and the Veterans Business Outreach Centers. This webinar was developed to help veteran-owned small businesses accelerate growth in the federal marketplace. As many of you know, VIP offers 5 different curriculums to give veteran-owned small businesses the tools they need to win government contracts. Participants receive hands-on, market-based instruction that helps to establish best business practices for federal government contracting, and the program is offered at no cost. We're currently accepting applications for all 5 VIP training programs. For more information, please visit our website at www.nationalvip.org. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for this afternoon, and that's Mr. Larry Stubblefield. Larry is the Associate Administrator for the Office of Veteran Business Development at the U.S. Small Business Administration. And in this role, Larry oversees the OVBD team in developing and implementing policies and programs that equip veterans, service members, active duty, National Guard and Reserve, and military spouse-owned small businesses with counseling and education, access to capital, and contracting opportunities. Larry has firsthand military experience, having served 30 years as an enlisted soldier and active duty officer in the U.S. Army. In 2005, he retired from the military as a colonel and was appointed to the Senior Executive Service. Larry is going to save some time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. Also, the slides and video recording from today's webinar will be emailed to you. And now, again, I want to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Larry Stubblefield. I now turn it over to you, Larry. Welcome.
All right, thank you, Mauricio, for that warm welcome. It's always a pleasure to be with VIP. You know, it's like I was telling Barbara Ash yesterday, this is one of my favorite engagements, always. Before we get started, I wanted to conduct a little bit of a poll, if you will. So let's put the first, the couple of questions up here. So first one, is your company CVE certified? Yes or no? And if yes, is your certification expiring in the next 12 months? Okay, so we'll take a couple of seconds here to allow the audience to vote. Okay, so here's our results. Is your company CVE certified? So we've got 79% of the audience, or at least the voting audience, says yes, 17% no, and is your certification expiring in the next 12 months? We have, 45% no or yes. And so we're going to talk to all of you who are expiring in the next 12 months or so here during the presentation. Okay, so thank you very much for taking the survey. And with that, we'll jump into the presentation. So I want to start off by just saying that, you know, our administrator, Administrator Guzman and the VA Secretary, Mr. McDonough, are hand in hand on this transfer. For our administrator, it's our number one priority. It's getting the CVE, the functions from the VA, and established in a successful manner at SBA. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about rulemaking here too, but we definitely want to hear from the veteran small business community on what you would like to see in a new CVE that's going to be established at SBA. So with that, I'll jump to the first slide. And, by way of a little bit of a background, currently veteran small businesses can compete for set-aside contracts at the VA. Of course, you'd have to go through the VA's Veterans First contracting program. And part of going through that is being certified through the current CVE. So the VA right now is the only agency that has a certification program in place. If you're SDVOSB, you can self-certify through SAM and compete for government contracts, across the other federal agencies. So the change here is indicated on the slide with the FY21 National Defense Authorization Act. It mandated that the functions for the Center for Verification and Evaluations at the VA move over to SBA no later than 1 January 2023. So what does this mean, when you look at the big picture? Now, for the first time ever, all certification programs will be at SBA. So we're talking about the 8A program, the Women-Owned Small Business Program, Hub Zone, and now the SDVOSB program. So next slide, please. So what does this mean? What does this mean for veteran-owned small businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses? So if you're up for certification here in the very near future, we're asking you to reach out to the VA and take care of that. The VA, of course, they'll be reaching out as well. I think they go out within a 120-day period, email notifications asking you to come in and take care of your certification. If you're a VOSB or SDVOSB and you're certified through the VA and you're not, and I repeat again, you're not up for recertification. In other words, you got your certification in 2021, and that's the certification covers a 3-year period, meaning that you would be up for recertification in 2024. There's absolutely nothing at all for you to do. Now, that's a question that comes up quite a bit. The thinking that once the CVE comes over to SBA, that you have to start all over again. If you're in that time period that I just mentioned, there's nothing at all for you to do. Everything at the VA will transfer to the SBA. So certification in 2021 and you're up for 2024, at this time, there's nothing for you to do. Now, if you're self-certified in SAM and you're interested in doing business with the government, we're asking you also to reach out to the VA and start the certification process. We're trying not to have a bottleneck as we get to the transfer date. So please reach out and work with the VA and get your certification started if you're interested in doing business with the government. And then the last point I want to make on this slide is there'll be a 1-year grace period from the transfer date, for those who have gone and got their certification. In other words, if you get your certification and you're competing for a contract in any federal agency for that matter, and you haven't received your certification, it's in the mill, if you will, in the queue up for processing. If a contracting officer offer you a contract, what that contracting officer will do is reach back to SBA, and we'll move your certification up in the queue, and we'll get it done. The reason why this is important in terms of that 1-year grace period, if come 1 January 2024 and beyond, if you decide then that you want to become certified, you will not be able to compete for government contracts. So in that grace period, we're asking that you get certified or at least put your application in for certification, and you can still compete for government contracts 1 January 2023 and beyond, as long as your application is in the queue. But if you go beyond the grace period, you'll have to wait until you get your certification. to be able to be awarded a government contract. Next slide, please. So at SBA, as well as with the VA, we are very busy right now in making this happen. We're under like about a 5.5 month period here now, between now and 1 January 2023. And these are 4 focus areas. Again, like I said earlier, this is top of mind for our administrator. She established a Tiger team, and I'll talk about these 4 areas here. You know, starting with funding. So when we started the process, when the law was passed, it didn't come with any funding for the transfer. So I'm here to tell all of you, you know, we've been very successful working with OMB as well as with the VA. The VA, they have been outstanding partners in this. In fact, they transferred $10 million over to us, you know, for our the technology piece of what it is that we're trying to do. But working with OMB and working with the congressional staffers, we've managed to secure the funding for FY23, which starts 1 October. So the funding for FY23 is in place. The funding for the technology is in place, thanks to the VA. And speaking of the technology, what the funding that we received from the VA is going to do for SBA is allow us to build a new system. We've elected not to bring over the VEMS system. That's the Veteran Enterprise Management System that the VA currently uses for their certification processing. And the reason why we've elected not to bring over their system is our administrator has a vision, you know, and I'll speak here really quickly about the vision, but she's looking to build a unified platform. That's what we're calling it, the unified platform. And the unified platform will contain all of the certification programs as well as all of SBA lending programs. And what we want to do, we want to get away from a complaint that we've heard for years now from business owners, you know, and that is like if you apply for the, you know, one certification program and then later you apply for a second one, why is it that you're asking for the same documentation, you know, and so forth. So with this new platform, the unified platform, business owners are going to see a single portal, if you will, and we're calling it My SBA. So you would go into My SBA, and for example, if you're a veteran woman and a small business owner and you decide you want to get your women-owned small business certification, you'll be able to go into My SBA, you know, upload your documentation, and during the process of applying for your certification for the WASB program, the Women-Owned Small Business Program, we're going to ask you, would you also like to have your SDVOSB certification? If the answer is yes, you know, we're going to have an API solution, if you will, back to the VA where we would ask 2 questions. Number 1, is this a veteran? And number 2, is this a service-disabled veteran? And then right there in that single processing, if you will, that veteran business owner will be allowed to get the 2 certifications. And then, oh, by the way, are you interested in an SBA loan? So we're very excited about the unified platform that we're standing up, as well as the ability for business owners, to include veteran small business owners, to go in through a single portal. And we're looking at this as an enhanced customer experience. We do, I will mention at this point, when we talk about technology, there's been some questions about security, you know, as far as transferring data back and forth with the VA. You know, we've got some of the best experts, if you will, in our CIO shops on both sides of the fence that's looking at that. And I'm just here to assure everyone that the security, you know, and making sure we don't compromise any data is definitely, you know, top of mind as well. The bottom box there talks about personnel. You know, in fact, earlier today, I had my 3rd meeting with the VA staff. We're looking to bring on the entire CVE team. as well as the 4 contracts that are associated with CVE at VA. And the reason for that is, number one, the VA has a really great customer experience going right now. Every forum we've been in, surveying veteran small business owners, we get nothing but positive feedback in terms of how quickly applications are processed. And then number 2, the customer service experience. So we want to keep that going. And these folks, like I say, are first class at what they do. And we would like to get them over to help us design the new system as well as run the new system. So we are in the process now of working with the VA, because the VA employees who are government employees who work with the CVE, they have a choice. The statute allows them to either, on their own, they can say, yes, we'll go to SBA, or they can remain at the VA and the VA will place them in new roles. At SBA, we're very hopeful that the employees come over, as well as those contracts. We want to continue that great customer experience and leverage their knowledge. Then on the policy side of the house, the rulemaking is currently, we've gone through the interagency process and working through OMB. The rule is currently with the Federal Register. They're going to take another look at it, but we're very hopeful that in the next 2 weeks, the rule will go out for the public comment period. We're looking at a 30-day public comment period. We very much want to know what the veteran small business community think about how we plan to run the new version of CVE at SBA. And excuse me, our focus is going to be more so on ownership and control. And then we're looking to be a little bit more inclusive, because we're looking at things like incarceration, probation, parole, bankruptcies, maybe tax issues and things of that nature. Should any of those prohibit a veteran small business from participating in government contracting? We think that there's some wiggle room in there to allow for participation. And I'll give an example. Like, we've asked in some different forums, what do you think about an incarcerated business owner? Say if you're the business owner, the veteran is incarcerated and is part of the 51% ownership, is that something that we should allow, keeping in mind that a lot of times when you leave incarceration, there's a strong strong possibility that you may go back if you're not capable of securing employment or business ownership and things of that nature. And I will tell you that it's about 50-50 when we ask this in audiences. The downside in the mind of some is that now we're talking about ownership. How can you run your company if you're behind bars? Well, I'm from Chicago. Right off the top of my head, people like Al Capone and a few other folks ran things from behind bars. But that's one thing. But the other side of this too is an example that was brought up in one forum was the business owner who maybe a judge says for the next 4 months you're going to spend every weekend behind bars. Should incarceration be something that prohibits business owners from participating in government contracting? So again, we're very interested in what the veteran small business community thinks, and a lot of this, we know that there's a lot of thinking in terms of fraud management and things of that nature. So again, the feedback from the public is going to be really important as we shape the new policy for how we run the CVE at SBA. So on the very next slide, this is this is a notional timeline, if you will. We're actually meeting with the VA on Friday to kind of refine the timeline a little bit more. We have an RFQ, the request for quotes, that's out right now. And I'm looking at the top left-hand corner that talks about July 22nd here. So we have an RFQ out, seeking a vendor to come in to build a new system. My understanding as we speak, there's like about 7, I think, vendors that have stepped up and expressed interest in building the new CVE. We've amended the RFQ based on questions that these 7 vendors have asked. And so the goal now is to make an award late next month. And then just below that, the July through September time period. One question that I receive a lot is, are you sure you can build a new system in just a matter of a few months? Well, the answer to that is yes, because we're leveraging existing technology that we put in place to support the COVID relief programs, and we had to put those new systems in place, like almost overnight, to ramp up processing, I should say, for the number of loans and things associated with the Paycheck Protection Program, the Restaurant Revitalization Program, or economic injury disaster lending. That technology is the basis for the unified platform that I was speaking of before. So our technical experts, our CIO and others that we've consulted with all think that this is very doable. And so the rest of this slide just talks about the fine dance that we're going to be doing with the VA, because the VA will have to shut down as we ramp up, and we need their people to move over on our side, and at the same time remain sensitive to the fact that they'll be processing applications, up until a particular time, agreed upon time frame, which we're still kind of like working through with the VA. In that October time period, under October 2022, we're going to be testing the platform. So we're going to go out and get veteran small businesses to help us do the testing. And then the rest of the slide just talks about the movement of the personnel. If you notice in December, the final rule, must be in place, 30 days before the opening of the new CVE. So the plan is to have the final rule in place on the 1st of December. And then we'll start onboarding the remaining CVE staff. And then, the big cutover date would be 1 January 2023 with the CVE up and running at SBA. So on the next slide, just talking about how to keep the public informed. The second bullet there talks about we've established a mailing address, if you will, CVE Transfer at SBA.gov. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at CVE Transfer at SBA.gov. We'll answer your questions. And you can also request to be put on the monthly mailing list. Every month we send an email update out on where we are with the CVE transfer. So CVE Transfer at SBA.gov is a great way to stay abreast of what we're doing. And then I mentioned the rule is coming out, like hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Please be on the lookout for the rule. And with that, we'll go to the next slide, where we'll open up at this time for any questions that the audience might have.
Excellent, Larry. Well, great information. We really appreciate it. So we will turn over to the Q&A portion of this. So please, for everyone, please submit your questions in the Q&A box that can be found in the toolbar. Don't put them in the chat. Please use the Q&A box. So I will read those to you, Larry, if I can. All right. And let's start with the first question, which is the self-certification for non-BA agencies based on law?
The self-certification for non-B, I mean, what we're getting ready to do now is designed to eliminate self-certification. I mentioned the concern about fraud. I think all of you have from time to time heard about, rent a vet. So the goal now is to eliminate self-certification. And, government contracting, as all of you know, is, very lucrative. And we just want to make sure that at least Congress wants to make sure that everyone participating in federal procurement, is a veteran, a legitimately owned and operated veteran small business.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that. Next question. With SBA self-certification as an option, will VA make more opportunities available to SDVOSBs and VOSBs? Not sure you can answer that, but
well, in terms of more opportunities, that is definitely top of mind for our administrator. In fact, this past November, we came out with the Equity in Procurement Initiative. And one of the things that Administrator Guzman has been focused on is the fact that, 10 years ago, there was something like 180,000 or so small businesses participating in government contracting. And today, 10 years later, there's a little under 80,000. And so this affects the industrial base. And the administrator has taken a look at, we understand what the purpose of category management, bundling and things of that nature, the purpose for those initiatives, but at the same time, there's been unintended consequences that we're looking at. So part of that equity in procurement initiative is to have the federal agencies, like number one, the goal for the small disadvantaged businesses have gone up this year from 5% to 11%, and by 2025 the goal is to have it at 15%. I know there's some movement on now, some thinking in terms of the SDVOSB goals, but more to follow on that. But the more important point is federal agencies now are going to be required to not just report dollar amounts in government contracting, but they're going to be required to report the number of participants. And there's going to be pressure to increase the number of participants. And we do know that, at the VA, the certification process now has fairly become smooth. But then the feedback we get is that, okay, we get verified, but now it's a hard road to get a contract. So this is another area that's top of mind for our administrator.
Okay, next question is, why do non-veteran owned businesses win contracts when SDVOSB certified can provide the goods? And the second part of the question is, what are the approaches to take when this happens?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand the question. So why do non-veteran owned companies get the contracts when, okay, so this is one where we, through this process, the CVE migration, we're looking to start kind of like educating and, kind of pointing contracting offices or contracting officers, I should say, in a new direction. Now, the category management piece, I just mentioned the Equity in Procurement Initiative. One of the things that we managed to do with category management now is to move, veterans into tier 2 for category management. Prior to November, veterans were in category 0, meaning that contracting officers, they get credit, for the various tiers. So by getting veterans moved up to category 2, we know now that, contracting officers will get credit, for awarding contracts to veterans. So again, this is something that Administrator Guzman is definitely working on. If all of you know that when the president came into office, the day one, he put an initiative out in terms of the federal government being able to support underserved communities. Veterans are considered part of the underserved community. So again, this is top of mind, not just for the administrator, but across the federal government with this administration.
Okay, great. And I think Taylor answered one of the questions. Let me move to this one from James. Will the 3-year self-certification currently in place be effective before the transfer to SBA?
Yes. So like I said during the presentation, the example that I would give is if you were certified, say in 2021, and your 3-year period ends in 2024, there's nothing for you to do at all, because everything at the VA is moving over to SBA. This thought that now that it moved over to SBA, you got to start all over again, that is not the case. It's only if your 3-year period is coming to an end here before 1 January 2023, or if you're self-certified and you've never applied for certification and you're interested in doing government contracting right away, that we're urging you, those in those 2 categories, to reach out to the VA and get started right away.
Okay, next we have a question from Keith. Will the new certification process require all original documentation? I run a small SDVOSB and the man hours required limit how much time I can spend on the certification process versus trying to develop new business.
Well, two points on that. Number one, we're looking we're trying to think through how we get the documentation from the VA. So yeah, we're looking at that. And then number two, we're also thinking about streamlining the documentation, because I mentioned earlier that we get a lot of positive comments of the VA's process, but on the flip side, we get a lot of feedback in terms of the required amount of documentation. It just seems like it's a lot. And so, we're looking at, when you see the federal rule, we didn't even address documentation in the rule, because, we're looking again for the community to help us decide exactly what that should look like, knowing that we have to focus on ownership and control. Like, how much is required to prove that you are the actual owner and that you're controlling your company.
Okay, next we have, does the SBA intend to streamline the number of requirements, for example, financials, payroll, resumes, board minutes, etc., which VA CVE requires in the current verification process?
The answer to that question is yes. And like I just mentioned, that I hear this everywhere I go, that it's a lot of there's a lot of documents, and so we've taken that to heart to look at exactly what do we need business owners to turn in to prove or to show ownership, and that the fact that they actually operate the company.
Okay. Next, can SBA help in getting security clearances for SDVOSB companies?
That's a question. I think for right now, for this forum, we can definitely take that back. I can bring that up, but as far as the CVE migration, we aren't looking at doing anything in terms of security clearances and things of that nature.
Okay. Next, will the 3 years recertification time period remain the same?
Right now, you know, we are looking at reciprocity, if you will, between all of the programs. So in other words, like say, for example, if you are, like I mentioned that example of the WASB program, if you're certified in WASB, you know, the question is, should we just go ahead and certify you across the board? You know, going back to the discussion about documentation and things of that nature. So right now, the 3-year period is where we're headed, but we're open to suggestions from the public because, you know, we have heard that maybe it should be 5 years, you know, or more. And at the same time, there's the part of the community that's really worried about fraud and the need to have, you know, to maintain that oversight.
Okay, next, the question is, I was re-verified on September 24th, 2020, and it expires September 24th, 2023. From what you are saying, I do not have to do anything and it should transition without an issue?
If your certification ends in 2023,
right,
at this time, there's nothing for you to do.
Okay, great. If there are other questions, please put them up in the Q&A box. I do see something in the chat asking, what is SBA Category 1? I think that goes back to the category management.
Okay, so this was a tiering. I don't have the tiering categories right in front of me right now, but you know, it goes up to like tier 3 is like best in class, and then tier 2 is, you know, just below that. And like I was saying earlier, you know, until we started digging into category management, you know, at least for me personally, I did not realize that veterans were in category 0, meaning that contracting officers, you know, were not getting credit when they awarded a contract to veterans. The fact that we've moved veterans up to number 2 is a huge step in the right direction, and getting contracting officers to acknowledge veterans and making it a two-way street where they get credit and then veterans are offered those contracts.
Okay, one other question popped up. If I have more than one business, can I add to the certification I already have? And if so, would the recertification end at the same time as the first business?
Okay, so what I would say on that is, for right now, I would say to reach out to the VA, because I mean, now we're talking about the VA's rules versus what our rules are. I wonder for this person, when would their certification end?
If you,
and there are some rules and policies in place, I know, on the VA side for joint ventures and things of that nature, second companies, but I just don't know enough about on the VA side.
Larry, he's saying the certification ends in August 2023.
Okay. Okay, so this is like adding a second company?
Right, yes.
Okay, so I guess I'd ask you, Mauricio, just to read that one to me again.
Sure. It says, if I have more than one business, can I add to the certification I have? And if so, would the recertification end at the same time as the first business?
Okay, so let us take that one back. We'll take that one back and take a look at it. I want to give an answer. I know, like, if there's a second business involved, we're asking to, to go through the process with that second business, but I would have to look to see what our rule says about that. So we'll flag that one.
Okay. Next, not a question, but a comment. I recently was recertified as an SDV OSB using the abbreviated process, which was very straightforward and quick. I hope the SBA will continue this option and consider it being the norm after the initial certification.
Yeah, so that's, you were talking about the simplified recertification, if you will. And I think that's the VA. There's 15 questions that they ask, and and it totally makes sense to us as well. I mean, if there's nothing that has changed in terms of ownership and control, and everything is still in line with your initial documentation, does it make sense for you to have to go through the process again? The answer is no. But I think the way the VA looks at it, and the way we're probably going to look at it too, there's going to be maybe a dollar threshold. In other words, if nothing's changed and you have less than, I'd say, for example, $1 million in contracting, then maybe you go through that simplified acquisition or recertification, if you will. But if it's a multi-million-dollar setting we're looking at, we would take another look at it. I would like to just say, keep in mind, there is an element of the public, the veteran small business community, that's watching and influencing what we do, because this thought about fraud, is top of mind for a lot of business owners. And we do see the veteran small business community, they know who owners are. We do get the protests, where owner A knows that company B that got that contract, the owner is not a veteran, so that's playing in all of this thinking. We're trying to get to a sweet space, where we can make some, where we can make some adjustments that would kind of like streamline the process, take down the amount of documentation needed and so forth. But there's also the call to keep things in place and to keep the pressure on in terms of fraud prevention.
Okay, next question. Will SDV OSBs get an SBA rep like the 8A companies? I guess that means like a BOS.
We haven't gotten that far in the thinking about it. As it stands right now, I would say no. But having said that, when we're in conversations with VSOs and others, the reason why the VSOs are so supportive of the CVE coming to SBA is because they're also looking at what can be done in terms of business development. It's not enough for the VSOs for the CVE to just be at SBA. Now we've got all the certification programs here. Business owners can, have multiple certs, they can get lending. But what are you, SBA, what are you going to do for business development? And our administrators hearing that, I'm hearing it, we're hearing it in different forms, and it's something that, we're going to have to address.
Right.
And I'll say this too, as part of, it just popped in my mind, as part of being supportive, SBA is about business. And the VA, although they're doing a great job with the CVE, but their focus is, healthcare and benefits. And so the VSOs, realize that, that this is going to be a shift in the mindset, because now, with the certification programs all at SBA, we're business development, that's something that they want to see more of, and the administrators is definitely open to that, because that's what we're about at SBA, you know, helping you start, grow, and expand your business.
Excellent. Okay, next from Mike Thornton. He doesn't have a question, just 2 comments. Thank you very much for providing this webinar, Mr. Vera and Mr. Stubblefield. Always very helpful and important to hear from you. Second comment, I cannot believe it that for once we are ahead on an action and not behind. We were recertified earlier this year. Thank you again. Okay.
Say thank you to Mr. Thornton. It's
yes.
always a pleasure hearing from him or working with him. So thank you.
Absolutely. I second that. Next, are you accepting appointments?
Appointments as in?
Guess meetings.
Oh, like getting on my calendar?
Yeah.
Well,
so.
I do. So if you, I guess I'll ask Taylor to put my email address in the chat and reach out, and you know, and I have taken a lot of appointments, a lot of calls, because we really want to get this right, and we want to know, you know, what you think. And you are the business owners, and you're going to be the user, you know, the end users, if you will, of the new system. And we want your feedback.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Larry. Any other questions? Well, we still have Larry. We really do appreciate your generosity with your time, Larry, and to be open to having meetings. That says a lot. So we really appreciate your service. I don't see other questions. So I'm gonna, then in closing, I just want to thank you, Larry, for an outstanding presentation. Lots of great information. You know, and we really appreciate all the questions from the participants. Thank you for attending this VIP VBOC webinar, and to the SBA for making this webinar possible. There will be a part 2 of this webinar on July 20th with VIP graduate Mark Goldschmidt, founder and CEO of Goldschmidt & Associates, LLC. We encourage everyone to attend. You can find the registration link in the chat box. And lastly, I'd like to ask that you take a moment to complete the very short survey that will appear on your screen immediately following this program. Your feedback is very important to us. Larry, I want to thank you again. Really appreciate your time. Best of luck with this transition. I know how important it is. So we really appreciate your support and your service.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here today. And this is really important with you allowing me to be here, because you're helping get the word out. So we appreciate VIP's support as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Larry. Thank you to everyone. We wish you all continued success and hope to see you at part 2 on July 20th. With that, thank you again. Have a great afternoon, a great rest of your week. We'll see you soon, Larry. Thank you. Bye-bye now.